Today, we're going to explore why this gap between the rich and everyone else seems to be growing faster than ever in Britain. We'll look at why solutions seem so elusive and compare what other countries are doing to tackle this problem.
Because, let's face it, if we don't understand how the system works, how can we possibly fix it?
Exactly. First things first, why are the rich in Britain seemingly getting richer at such a rapid pace?
Well, like you said, the tax system plays a huge role. In the UK, the income you get from investments, what's called capital gains, is often taxed at a lower rate than your regular income from work.
It seems like it's set up to help those who are already wealthy accumulate even more.
It definitely gives them a significant advantage. They can grow their wealth faster thanks to this lower tax burden, while those relying on wages struggle to keep up. We've seen the rise of a few giant corporations dominating entire industries, utilities, tech, finance, you name it.
It feels like they have a stranglehold on essential services and can pretty much dictate their terms.
And that's where rent-seeking comes in. Instead of focusing on innovation and efficiency, these companies can often extract wealth simply because of their market power.
It's like owning the only bridge in town and charging an arm and a leg to cross it, even if the bridge is falling apart.
Exactly. And a prime example of this is the UK water companies. They essentially operate as regional monopolies, meaning you have no choice who provides your water.
And what do we see? High prices, massive dividends being paid out to shareholders, and often not enough reinvestment back into infrastructure. It's like they prioritize profits over providing a decent service.
And consumers end up bearing the brunt of it. You can't exactly choose to go without water. It's a classic case of rent-seeking.
So it's this combination of favorable tax policies for the wealthy and the unchecked power of monopolies that's driving this wealth gap, right?
It's definitely a big part of the picture, but there's also the issue of corporate tax avoidance. I think we've all had this nagging feeling that these giant multinational companies aren't paying their fair share. The official corporate tax rate might be 25%, but it feels like many are finding ways to slip through the cracks.
Okay, let's unpack that. How are they managing to avoid paying the full amount? What are the tricks of the trade?
Well, one common tactic is profit shifting. Essentially, they shift their profits to countries with much lower tax rates, places like Ireland, Luxembourg, or the Cayman Islands, while reporting their costs in higher tax countries like the UK. It's a way to legally minimize their overall tax burden.
So even though the money is made here, it ends up being taxed somewhere else.
Exactly. It's like a financial shell game.
Yeah.
They might set up a subsidiary in a tax haven and then charge their UK operations exorbitant fees for using brand names, patents, or other intellectual property. This reduces their taxable profits in the UK.
So they're basically paying themselves to lower their tax bill.
You got it. And then there are the infamous offshore shell companies, complex structures designed to make it incredibly difficult to track where the money is really going. It's like creating a financial labyrinth for tax authorities to get lost in.
And we've seen this happening with some of the biggest names out there, haven't we? Companies like Amazon, Google, and Apple have come under fire for using these tactics to minimize their UK tax contributions.
That's right. While there has been more scrutiny on their practices recently, these loopholes have historically allowed them to pay far less tax than they should. And all of this while workers' rights have been weakening and the power of unions has declined. It's made it harder for ordinary people to negotiate fair wages and secure better working conditions.
Meanwhile, executive pay at these same corporations keeps skyrocketing. It feels like the system is designed to funnel wealth upwards, leaving those who are actually creating the wealth behind.
That's a key point. The decline in collective bargaining power and the rise of executive compensation have created a system where the rewards are increasingly skewed towards the top.
And then there's this whole concept of the financialization of the economy. Can you explain what that means and how it contributes to this problem?
Essentially, it means that financial activities, things like banking, investment, and speculation, are becoming more dominant than traditional productive activities like manufacturing or agriculture. More wealth is now generated from simply moving money around than from actually creating tangible goods and services.
So it's like the focus has shifted from making things to making money from money.
Exactly. And this tends to disproportionately benefit those who work in the financial sector, like banks and hedge funds, rather than those who work in the real economy.
Okay, so we've established that the rich are getting richer, and we've explored some of the key reasons why. But why aren't governments doing more to close these loopholes and address this inequality? Especially labor, who are supposed to be the party of wealth redistribution. What's the holdup?
There are a few key factors at play here. One of the biggest is the fear of capital flight. The argument is that if the UK raises taxes on corporations and the wealthy, they'll just pack up and move their assets and businesses to countries with more favorable tax regimes.
So it's like they're holding the economy hostage, threatening to leave if they don't get their way.
It's a powerful threat that politicians take very seriously. But there's also the immense influence of lobbying. Wealthy individuals and corporations pour money into political campaigns and have close ties with those in power.
So they can exert pressure and make sure the rules of the game stay in their favor. It feels like a rigged system. It feels like we're stuck in a race to the bottom, constantly lowering taxes to appease corporations, even if it means our public services suffer.
It can feel that way, yes.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the influence of media. Many media outlets are owned or heavily influenced by the wealthy, and they shape the public narrative around taxes and wealth in a way that benefits their interests. But the point is, this isn't a problem unique to the UK. Other Western countries are grappling with this same issue of wealth inequality, and some are actually taking steps to address it. The European Union, for example, has been quite proactive in this area. Remember the Apple Pax case back in 2024? The European Court of Justice ruled that Apple had to pay back billions of euros in taxes to Ireland because of the way they were exploiting tax loopholes.
I remember that. It felt like a major victory. Like even giant corporations can be held accountable.
It was a landmark case. And beyond that, the EU has implemented a global minimum corporate tax rate of 15% for large multinationals.
So they're trying to stop companies from playing countries off against each other and ensuring they pay a fair share, no matter where they operate.
Precisely. And Australia has introduced public country-by-country reporting, requiring large multinationals to disclose their tax information for every country they work in.
Transparency is key, right? Shining a light on their practices could help expose tax avoidance and put pressure on them to change.
That's the idea. And on a global level, the OECD has been leading the charge with the Base Erosion and Profit Shifting Project, or BEPS, which aims to combat corporate tax avoidance through measures like the global minimum tax. And this brings us to another point. What about the idea of regulating private industries more heavily, especially those providing essential services? Can we force them to operate in the public interest, even if they're privately owned?
It sounds good in theory. If we can't afford to buy them back, could we just impose so many rules that they essentially function like public services?
The government could certainly try.
What are the challenges with this approach?
There are international trade agreements that can limit a country's ability to regulate foreign companies too strictly.
More red tape. It feels like our hands are often tied by these international agreements.
And we can't forget the very real risk of corporate backlash. If a company feels the regulations are too punitive, they might threaten to withdraw their services altogether. Imagine the chaos if a major energy or water provider suddenly shut down.
Okay, that sounds like a recipe for disaster. So what's a more viable alternative?
Well, one option is to take a more gradual approach. Instead of trying to force private companies to change overnight, we could focus on setting up state-run alternatives to compete with them. This is something Norway has done quite successfully in the energy sector.
So create competition from within the public sector. That sounds like a more sustainable approach. Now, we've talked a lot about corporations and taxes, but what about the broader concept of economic growth? We often hear politicians touting it as the solution to all our problems, but is that really the case?
It depends on who's benefiting from that growth. If the richest 1% are capturing the lion's share of any new wealth created, then the average person isn't really seeing any improvement in their living standards.
Right, so the overall economy might be growing, but the benefits aren't being shared equally.
And a 2022 study from the London School of Economics actually confirmed this. They found that in the UK, the richest 1% have been the only group whose share of total income has consistently increased over the past 3 decades.
That's pretty damning evidence. And the rising house prices are a perfect example of this disconnect. It might look good on paper, but for most people, it's just making it harder to afford a place to live.
Absolutely. The housing market has become increasingly financialized. Homes are seen more as assets for investment than as places for people to live, driving up prices and making it incredibly difficult for those trying to get on the property ladder.
It's like the system is designed to benefit those who already own property at the expense of those who don't.
In many ways, yes. So while economic growth might sound good on the surface, it's crucial to look at who's actually benefiting from it.
So circling back to our main theme, if this extreme wealth hoarding is so problematic, why haven't governments taken more decisive action to stop it? We know about the tax havens and loopholes, but surely there's more to it than that.
You're right. While tackling these sophisticated tax avoidance strategies is challenging, it's not impossible. The UK has the tools to crack down on them. The question is, do they have the political will?
So it's a choice, not a limitation.
Absolutely. And this idea that higher taxes on the wealthy will lead to a brain drain, all the smart and successful people fleeing the country, is largely a myth. Wealthy individuals benefit immensely from the UK's infrastructure, institutions, and culture.
It seems like that's more of a scare tactic than a genuine threat.
I think so. The real issue is the control that wealthy elites have over the political narrative. They influence media, fund political campaigns, and shape public opinion in ways that protect their interests. And if things continue down this path, we could see serious social and economic consequences. Historically, extreme inequality has often led to unrest, instability, and even societal collapse.
So what can be done? If we want to create a fairer system where wealth is distributed more equitably, what concrete steps can be taken?
Well, one fundamental change would be to reintroduce a genuinely progressive tax system. We could also look to countries like Denmark and Norway, which have been successful in closing tax loopholes and cracking down on offshore tax havens.
So learning from those who are doing it right.
Exactly. Another key step is to consider phasing in nationalized alternatives in crucial sectors like energy, water, and housing. This would ensure that these essential services are run in the public interest, not for private profit.
And we need to rethink our approach to housing, treating it as a fundamental right, not just an investment opportunity.
Absolutely. But making these changes will require a significant shift in political priorities and a groundswell of public support. It won't be easy, but it's essential if we want to create a fairer and more sustainable society.
The widening gap between the rich and the rest of us isn't some inevitable force of nature. It's the result of specific policies and power dynamics that can be challenged and changed. Are we really saying we're not clever enough? That we can't design a system that keeps the good parts of economic competition, innovation, progress, efficiency, but ditches the parts that lead to wealth extraction, falling quality, and declining living standards for so many?
Yeah, is this really the best we can do?
Do we honestly believe the only way to foster better ideas or new technologies is to let a tiny few accumulate vast, unimaginable wealth while almost everyone else is asked to just work harder for less and less? The idea that we need a tiny class of billionaires for prosperity is, frankly, a self-serving story they like to tell. Real growth should mean better health for people, better education, secure, affordable housing, a stable climate, a cleaner environment, not just bigger profits for energy companies or landlords. We need to measure what actually matters.
Well-being, sustainability, equality.
Yeah, and crucially, public wealth. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
And we hope you found it insightful. And be sure to subscribe to the Karma Pini channel.